All right, folks, welcome back to Literally Me. This is a big episode. This is, again, another sort of side ep apart from our Ryan Gosling filmography journey. We just ended 2023 and figured that we would kick off this year sort of talking about some of our favorite movies and just 2023 in general. And per usual, I'm joined by my boy Dino. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Excited to do this episode. I've been waiting, man. I've been cooking up this list. It wasn't easy, but I did it, and I'm excited to hear yours. And 2023 was an interesting year for movies, so I'm excited.
It was, yeah. I feel like in general, do you feel like 2023 was like a solid year for movies, at least compared to previous years?
It was. You can really feel like, because with COVID, you could feel like the 2021, 2022, those years, they had a little less to offer, I think. And you can feel like those films like started rolling out in 2023, or like more of them came. And I think next year we're gonna hit another slump a little bit with like
Mm.
the strike going on and things like that. So I think 2023 was a good year in comparison to the last couple of years, and I think at least the next year. But yeah, I think it was a good
Yeah,
year. What about you?
yeah. I No, I agree. I'm just looking back now at like some of the past years just to sort of see what came out, and I think that 2023. I don't know. I mean, I think it might be better than 2022, 2021 when I just kind of initially sort of letterboxed, top films of those years. Um, I feel like the main thing about it is that there was a lot of like really sort of like singular sort of films that were coming out this year. Things that were very much maybe not completely original, but were at least super original to that filmmaker. Whereas maybe in the past there were more like general films that are really good, but it's like, oh, anyone could have directed this, or like there's nothing like that. But this, I felt like it was like oozing with like style from like all of the directors who were like making stuff this year. Um, and for that reason, like now I'm looking at this list, I'm like, this might be the best year of the 2020s so far. I mean, obviously against 2020 itself was tough. With the pandemic, there wasn't that much stuff, but yeah, I think so far this is the best. But I'm surprised to hear you say because I'm actually very excited for some of these 2024 films.
Me as well. I think there are a lot of great ones, but I feel like this was the best since I think 2019 was like one of the strongest years we
Yeah,
had. So I think this was the closest one to it. And what even was very interesting, what you mentioned briefly, like a lot more original stuff, at least with the big IPs, let's say like big superhero films. Those didn't do well this year. Like you could really
yeah.
feel that those just kind of went under. People weren't as excited to see them. And that's why a lot of like other films just shine so much more. And that's really refreshing to see, even though I like superhero films. Like that's just a great way for other films to like take the spotlight a little bit.
It's a good sign to have something like that like appearing, and like even the films that like maybe didn't even crack my top 10, or films that like I appreciate but didn't love, like they were all like a lot of like big films, but they were somewhat original for the
Mm.
most part. You know what I mean? They may be adaptations on books and things, but not like a sequel of something, or
Mhm.
not a reboot, or not some kind of remake. So that is super super exciting. Um, and we'll get into obviously some of our favorite movies and things that we saw, some honorable mentions, our top 10, all that. What came out in 2023 that you didn't get a chance to see though?
There were quite a lot of films because in the last couple of like days I've been catching up with a lot of 2023 films
Yeah.
um for the sake of just myself and also this list, this podcast. And I noticed like there are a lot of films that I didn't get a chance to see either because I missed them in theaters or because they're not available here or not yet available. For example, Poor Things I think came out for you a couple weeks ago.
Yes. Yes,
It
it
comes
did.
out in 2 weeks for me, so that could
I
make the
see,
list
okay.
2023 favorite films, but I don't know yet because it comes out in 2024 here.
I
But
see.
apart from that, there's a couple. I think once we get to like the films. Maybe there's one or two films in your list I feel like that I didn't get a chance to see, and we'll talk about that particular film maybe. But yeah, just not everything is available, unfortunately. So yeah, that's like the main reason why I missed some of the films that I did. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough, and I think there's a fair amount of films that have just not been released yet for me, that I really wanted to see, like, the main one being Jonathan Glazer's movie, The Zone of Interest, which I'm super, super, super excited for, and I don't think it has a full wide release until maybe, like, February, I think, in the US at least. It kinda just did that LA, New York thing, um, which hopefully I won't have to worry about that in the future and can be around. But um, that is one that I'm really excited for. Another one being The Sweet East, with Simon Rex and Jacob Elordi, and it's a film by Sean. I'm gonna actually Google it. It's either Sean William Price or Sean Price Williams. He was the Safdie brothers. Yeah, Sean Price Williams.
Bryce
He
Williams,
was
yeah.
the Safdie brothers DP on Good Time, their earlier stuff as well. Pretty much everything for the most part pre Uncut Gems, and he's done like a lot of really cool independent stuff, and Sweet East looks like a really cool sort of just my type of movie, really unique, interesting, um, kind of just about people getting into weird, fucked up situations. And it seems really, really cool. And I was supposed to go see it at the New York Film Fest earlier this year. And then something came up. I wasn't able to go any longer, but I was really, really excited for that. And I'm sad I missed that. I don't know if that's even getting any kind of wide release. I think it's just video on demand coming up here in like a few weeks. But I have a feeling that would be in my top 10. And then also Ferrari, which just came out here.
Yeah.
Um, and I was gonna go see it last night, and I was just guilted myself into just like staying at home and working on some stuff because I felt all lazy all week, kind of coming back from the holiday. So I didn't end up going. Um, maybe it would crack the top 10. I don't know. I love Michael Mann. It looks awesome. I've heard great things. But just fair warning that those are some that I didn't see. Oh, and Past Lives. I never got around to Past Lives. It's available. I could rent it. I just never got around to it. I don't know why.
You could. We should probably like do a updated version maybe next year at the end of next year. Just like
I think
the ones
so.
we've
Yeah.
seen, so then you have an updated 2023 list because yeah, I completely forgot Ferrari came out. I still haven't seen it, even though it came out a couple of weeks ago, but that's
Yeah.
another one. Great mention.
Yeah, I feel like there's just so many good films. I also didn't get around to see Napoleon, which I know some people would say is not a great film, but there are just so many that came out where I'm like, God, I just don't have enough time to get to all of
Mhm.
these, and um, but there were a ton of awesome, awesome movies. Did you check out anything that wasn't like a movie, like any limited series or any cool music videos or any TV shows, maybe single seasons that came out from shows?
Mhm. Well, what came out this year, because I don't watch a lot of TV shows, unfortunately. I want to
Yeah,
get into it, but films are just like the main thing. But The Last of Us, I think, came out this in
yeah, I
2020.
think so.
That was great. And The Bear season 2. I loved that as well. I loved The Bear, which is a great show. I highly recommend it to you because I think you could fuck with it, man. I think it's a great show, and I like the first season more because it
Okay.
involved a lot more cooking. The second
Okay.
season, there's like a reason why they don't cook as much, but they had an incredible Christmas episode that you would love. So I
Okay.
think even if you never check out the show, I just would love to just show you the Christmas episode because it's just incredible. It's so chaotic, and I'm excited for the third season, which should come out I think this year. And they said it's gonna be a lot more cooking, so that's what I'm
Cool.
excited for.
I've seen the first episode of The Bear, and I very much enjoyed it. And then I don't know why I just didn't keep up with it, for whatever reason. But that's 100%. It's like my kind of style of like the way that it's shot, the way that the story, like what the story is, the acting, everything. Like it seems very much up my alley.
Yeah,
Um,
and maybe you get a
and
chance in 2024.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not a big TV series guy either. It's got to be very specific to like something that I like. Like, like the last season of Succession was this year. I thought Succession was one of the great shows like of all time.
Mhm.
Um, and again, I know I've talked about it on this pod before, but I can't recommend that show enough. Um, but then another one that I do want to mention that genuinely is like one of the greatest things that's been made this year is the Nathan Fielder, Benny Safdie, Emma Stone show, The Curse, which I think there's only one more episode left. I think it's coming up next. Or is it this Sunday? I forget what day of the week it comes out. I think it comes out on Fridays. So I think this coming Friday. Um, but which I guess by the time this has come out, maybe it's been wrapped. But at the time of this recording, there's only one episode left, and it is the most tense, like uncomfortable, like cringe-worthy sort of thing I've ever seen on television or film. Like it's just so good. It's so funny. It's so original. It's anxiety inducing. It's everything that I love, and obviously has three of like my favorite people in the entire industry all teamed up on one thing, and it's really it's incredible. And that's an A24 thing with Showtime and obviously Alara, the Josh Safdie, Benny Safdie company. So yeah, but I think there was a lot of cool TV that kind of came out this year, even though I really only mentioned one thing that was new this year and one that ended this year. But
Still, like we talked about, uh, I think we talked about it like a previous episode, and I told you that it's not available over here because I would love to watch it.
yeah,
Actually, a couple days ago, I found a way how to watch it because there's like
dude,
a Paramount Plus add-on for Apple TV Plus, and they have like
yes,
the first couple episodes. So I'm gonna wait until it ends because I have like a 7-day free trial.
trial and then burn
I'm
through
gonna
it.
get I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna watch all of it. So I'm excited to check that out soon. So we'll
Oh,
be able
dude,
to talk about it soon.
good. We'll have to get an update on that because you will. It is truly cringeworthy. Like it's very uncomfortable to sit through.
I love that.
Um,
That's my shit.
yeah, it's amazing. What do you say we go ahead and we get into our top 10 movies of the year? We were talking off pod, but for those listening, we're going to go through our top 10 of the year. We'll go in descending order from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 down to 1. And at any point, Dino, if I say a film that is higher up on your list, or if you say a film that is higher up on my list, then we'll go ahead and just chime in and say, "Hey, I got that on my list," and we'll just go ahead and move along. Um, but yeah, you wanna kick things off with whatever your number 10 is?
Well, do you have any honorable mentions before we start? Because I have,
Oh yeah, good.
maybe you
Yeah,
can start with yours.
yeah. I think there is, man. And now that I'm looking at it, like I'm looking at my list again, I'm like, should I move this up higher? Um, I think that I'm making a game time decision, and I'm actually moving a couple things around. I can't believe this on the
Damn.
spot. Um, One movie that is an honorable mention for me that was sitting in my top 10 and my top 5 actually for a long time was Brandon Cronenberg's film Infinity Pool.
I actually have that
Which
in my top 10.
okay, then we'll go ahead. We'll talk about that more. I'm glad that we can talk about it, but I loved
Mhm.
that movie.
So great.
Um, there's a great movie that came out this year called How to Blow Up a Pipeline that I really really loved. Did you get a chance to see that one?
I didn't. I wanted to watch it last night actually, but I ended up watching something else. But I'm
Okay.
gonna watch that soon for sure because I saw your review and it made me excited to check it out. So I 100% will.
It's super cool. I really love the way that it was shot, the way that it was directed. It's like very, very again, very tense, very suspenseful, but also very funny. Um, that was really cool. I have a feeling we'll talk about this next one, so I'll just wait until later on. And if it doesn't
Mhm.
come up, then I'll mention it. But I also want to shout out Beau is Afraid, which is not a movie that I know if I don't think I love it very much, but I really admire it. And the way that's kind of built, you saw it, right?
Yeah, I
Because
did.
we talked about it. The way it's kind of split into sort of 3 hour long blocks, like it feels like three different stories. The first hour is maybe the best thing all year. The first hour is unbelievably good, and I think that the second hour kind of throws me off. Like it kind of takes me out of it. So that way, when it kind of builds back in the third, I'm not as fully on as I would have been if it would have been coming from the first hour, maybe. But but I really liked that movie and want to shout that movie out. Um, I also want to shout out Sanctuary. I thought that was a cool movie. Um, and then I know I'm saying a lot of movies right now, but one more that I will shout out that I saw yesterday, and I was kind of working, kind of had it on the background, but still was more sucked into it. That I do want to mention is called Society of the Snow, um, which just dropped on Netflix. Do you know about this movie?
I know about it because Rope, who was on our podcast, actually mentioned that it's his favorite film of 2023. So he
I saw
talked
that
to
he
me.
rated it 5 stars.
Yeah, he told me a little bit about it, and it sounds amazing. I can't wait to check it out.
It's very, very cool. It's a little long, but it's really cool, and it's on Netflix. At least in the States, I'm assuming internationally though as well. Maybe I don't know with the whole May December thing. That was kind of
Yeah,
same issue, but yeah, that was a really cool movie that I saw yesterday that I was completely unaware of prior to like 24 or 48 hours ago. I had no idea even what it was,
same.
and was pleasantly surprised by that. But those are a handful of some of my honorable mentions. I definitely have way more, but I feel like some of them will be brought up later. But I think those are kind of the ones that are, I really wanted to shout out.
Hell yeah, those are some great picks, and I 100% agree with Bo is Afraid. Like the first hour is just incredible, then it takes a little bit of a fall, but the ending is really cool as well, and it's just so messed up. But that first hour when he's still in the city, like that's just
It's
insane how they
incredible.
make it. It
It's
just feels
incredible.
you feel it. You feel just the anxiety, and it's so great.
Yeah, it's amazing. What about you? What honorable mentions do you have?
So the first one I have is I hope it's not on your list, but Theater Camp, which I know you've seen.
Oh, it is in my list. We'll get to that one later.
Okay, we'll
It's
we'll
in my
get to it.
list. I
That
got
was
great things
incredible.
to say about that movie.
So good. Then another film that I didn't expect to like as much, and it almost made my list, but I took it out like a couple hours ago. But that's the new Hunger Games film, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I've
Okay,
only seen like prior, had only seen like the first and second Hunger Game films, and I wasn't like a huge fan. I liked them, but like they weren't that big for me. I never watched like the other two, the last two. But then this
sure.
one came out, and my girlfriend really likes those films, so she like watched all of them with me. And I didn't like the last two ones. They just like they weren't really that good. But I did end up going to see this one. I wasn't excited. My expectations were really low. And I was like blown away. It was so great. It was such a great film and such a great villain origin story. And I hadn't seen it done like that before. And it was very unhinged in the end. And I just really liked it. So it surprised me. So that's why I want to mention it. You've never seen the Hunger Games film, right?
I've never seen any of them. No.
Okay. I don't think they're really that worthy of checking out, but I really like this one, so I wanted to mention it.
I feel like I have
Then
to just for the pop culture aspect of it.
maybe, but I think you'll
Yeah.
be disappointed at least. Maybe you like the first and the second one, and maybe the newer one, but like those last two, they were supposed to be one, but they were split into part one and part two,
Right, right.
and they could be like a half an hour long film. Like they have no right
Oh,
to be that
okay.
long, but some interesting concepts, but I just wasn't that big of a fan. And then there's another film that I want to mention that is called Cassandra. Have you heard of this film?
I'm gonna look it up right now.
Okay. So it stars Gael Garcia Bernal, who you probably know, and
Yes.
it's about Cassandra, who was this amateur gay wrestler. He was in El Paso. That's where he wrestled. And it's a very, very personal and great story about this man who tried to take wrestling, which is like a very masculine thing, especially in Mexico. But he included it with his own sexuality, and he was shamed for it. And you have like in Mexico, you have men who do that with like these crazy clothes and things like that, and they're destined to always lose. They call them. I'm not sure what they call them. I think like flamingos or something. They don't take them seriously, so they're just there for like the big manly wrestlers basically to beat the shit out of them. But he managed to capture a lot of hearts, and it's such a great story, very wholesome. and that's just one I wanted to mention. You would love it, I think. So definitely
Yeah,
put it
I've
on
never
your.
even heard of this.
It's great. It's on Amazon. It's an Amazon Prime original, I think.
Cool.
And yeah, I wanted to give that one a shout out because it's just so great. But yeah,
Hell yeah. Cool, man. I think we're in a good point to go ahead and get into our top 10. I'm itching to talk about some of these movies that because I still, like I said, I have a few honorable mentions, but I'm like I feel like they'll pop up, and obviously you mentioned some that are on mine. So why don't we get started? What's your number 10 film of 2023?
Jason, my number 10 was a last minute decision. I literally made it like just an hour ago, but Creed 3, I just loved
Interesting.
so much. And I kind of forgot about it a little bit, but then looking at like my year, I remembered it again. And we talked about it on a previous episode. It was just such a great film. I love the Rocky films. I love Creed. They're just so great, such great films. And this is Michael B. Jordan's first film, and I think he did one hell of a job. I can't wait to see what he directs else. Like he's so incredible and so talented. And this had such an insane last fight scene, which Michael B. Jordan said like he took inspiration from like anime films and those over the top crazy fight scenes, which is it fits so much and it's so great. So Creed 3 is definitely like I had to put it on my list. I had a blast watching it. It's so creative. And Michael B. Jordan, man, I hope he makes more. I need Creed 4. I need anything else from Michael B. Jordan. Let this man cook. He's incredible.
Are they
That's
doing more Creed films?
they are. They're doing a TV show, I think, like a
Oh,
limited because he has
interesting.
a daughter in those films, and she's starting to box, but she
Ah,
has
Creedette.
she has a disability. I'm not going to spoil it to you in case you watch the Creed films,
Okay,
and they're going to like delve into that in the show how she manages to start boxing with that disability. And I
I
could
see.
see
Okay.
them taking this into the films in the later films once Michael B. Jordan is a lot older, his daughter is older, maybe he trains her more, and maybe she takes on the mantle, how he took it. Like he was trained by Rocky Balboa, he trains
Uh-huh.
her, and then turn it into like a really great story from there. And I'm excited.
Cool, man. Yeah, and I haven't seen any of the Creed films. Um,
Got
but
it.
that's crazy. I thought Michael B. Jordan had directed prior. But that's awesome to hear. I'm excited to hear. But actually, I think I'm thinking of Ryan Coogler, that Fruitvale
That's
Station
Ryan Coogler.
film.
Yeah. Yep,
Is it
that's Ryan
okay?
Coogler.
That's
Michael B. Jordan, this
starring
was
Michael
his
B.
film.
Jordan.
Yeah. And his next
Okay,
film is actually Creed 4, which I'm just seeing on Letterboxd. So,
Michael B. Jordan is.
yep.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I'd be curious to see to see him branch out and see what he could make non Creed related.
I hope after this one he makes something like completely original.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious to see. Okay, cool.
What's
Creed
your number
3.
10?
My number 10 is the movie Dream Scenario, directed by Christopher Borgli, I think is what it is. It's that the A24 film with Nick Cage. I don't was this released for you guys in Europe yet?
I'm not sure because I didn't see it in my theater lineup, so I haven't seen it yet. It might have, and I might have missed it. But that's another one I want to check out, but didn't get a chance to. So I'm excited to hear
Yeah,
what you have to say about it.
yeah, it was really cool. I love like just the idea of it is um so unique and original. Again, I know I'm using these words to death here today, but um it was a really cool, interesting movie that is like so one of one. Like I can't think of another movie that is like it. I mean, I guess it has shades of like Charlie Kaufman type of stuff, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
adaptation or being John Malkovich or shit like that. But I really enjoyed this movie. It was shot on 16 millimeter, so obviously all these films that were shot on film get an extra, just like at least a half a star out of me.
Hell yeah.
Um, and it was really cool. There was a cool cameo from Nicholas Braun from Succession, who has a hilarious bit. And also a couple of like TikTokers who I was told afterwards were actually very famous TikTok influencer type people. And after knowing that, I'm like, oh, that's even more funny. Like the scene that they're in. It's super cool, super funny. super unique, greatly written. Nick Cage is a fantastic actor, and Michael Cera has a great supporting role in it as well. It's um, it's really cool, and I think it got maybe when I think of like the biggest like aha like laugh out loud moments. Um, I would say this movie is up there for like the top three or top five. This one moment in particular made me laugh out loud in the theater. Um,
I'm
and
excited to
I
see
always
which
love when a
one.
film can do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
highly recommend. That's Dream Scenario with Nick Cage.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to watch that one because it looks very promising and I didn't know it was that funny. Like because I don't watch trailers that much, so
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
have no clue what it's about. So I didn't even know it was like funny or a comedy or whatever. But yeah, I'm
There's
excited.
a lot of funny moments in it. I wouldn't say the whole 100% of the time it is just like a joke per minute type of comedy thing or anything like that. But when there is comedy, it's very, very, very fucking hilarious.
Do these TikTokers have like actual roles or is it like a joke type cameo thing?
I mean, they're cameos in like one section of the film. Like they're not like characters like throughout the whole movie.
Oh, okay.
Um, like they play influencers, but I thought that they
Mm,
were just like fuckboy actors or something. But turns out they're actually like the biggest TikTok influencers alive, I guess.
interesting.
Um, which made it very funny. But
Mhm.
uh, but yeah, very, very, very cool and funny movie. What's your number nine?
Hell yeah. My number nine is actually Infinity Pool, so we get right into
Cool.
it.
Yes.
This was incredible, and I haven't told like this story on the podcast yet. I think I told you, but I started watching it and I was like, that looks really familiar, like that hotel where they're at. And then I saw that I've been to that hotel, like that resort. There are a couple hotels on that resort, like a bunch of
Yeah.
different ones, and they're all together. And I was like, holy shit. And that made me appreciate the film more and it sucked me in because I don't know what it's like for you because you live in the US, you've been to like cities where they have filmed shit. But
Yeah.
for me, I haven't really been. I've been to like Venice or Paris, sure, but those are places that I've seen prior, like from photographs. You've seen like
Sure.
cities,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're like big known cities, but this wasn't known. I didn't have anything prior. Like I haven't seen pictures of that resort. I haven't seen videos. Everything I know from those resorts are like from my own memories and not pictures or videos. And so it was so surreal watching this film because the film is really messed up. And
Yeah.
just being like having been at those places, it just sucked me in and made it so much more surreal. And it made the journey incredible. And that's why I had it included. I think that just made me love this film even more because I had like kind of a personal view or like relation to
Connection
this
to it.
film.
Yeah.
Dude, it was a trip. It was a trip.
I'm so glad that it's on your list because I really wanted to talk about this movie so badly. And like I said, it wasn't even until just a game time decision, maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, where I was like,
Mhm,
okay, fuck it, I got to rearrange this list really quick. And I made a couple changes.
mhm.
But this was not only in my top 10 all year, this was my number one film of the year for a long time. For a
Hell yeah.
long time until sort of the back quarter of the year and some of these other films started coming out and it still was kind of hanging in like the top five, top seven ish. But ultimately, as I was sort of sitting here, I was like, I don't really remember that much about it. Like it was an early release. I feel like it came out like in the beginning of the year, like maybe like a February, March sort of thing, if I'm not wrong. I'm probably wrong, but I feel like it was early in the year. And I love Brandon Cronenberg. I think that he's doing the right thing when you are in the shadow of someone like David Cronenberg. Um, um, hold on, I can't think and do two things at one time. Clearly, okay. Infinity Pool came out in oh yeah, January. Okay, very beginning of the year. So I was right. Um, and the thing about it is like it's so easy to just completely copy like what your dad did or what your famous uncle or your famous grandfather did because it's what's expected. And it's clear that he's very much into the same things, but he's taking really unique interesting takes on them. Like I thought his film Possessor is like one of my favorite films of the 2020s. I think that movie is incredibly good.
Still need to see it.
Um, and Infinity Pool, I felt like was an awesome next step, and I love White Lotus. It felt like a really fucked up episode of White Lotus. Um, but yeah, I really really loved this movie, and I love that there's just original sort of mind fucky sort of movies that are being made, and I think I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think Neon had a better year than A24 this year. When I really step back and look, I'm like, Neon is kind of stepping, not that they were ever down, but they're in the shadow of A24, but it's like Neon, I'm kind of fucking with them more right now. I can't lie to you. They are putting out some incredible, incredible shit that I think is even more niche than what A24 is doing. Not that that makes it better, but I just, this year in particular, I really preferred the films that they were putting out.
They're chefing up some great stuff, and I can't wait to see more of their future releases.
Yeah, they're going fucking crazy. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Sorry for hijacking that, but I really did love that movie and wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I only saw it recently, so it's a lot more like fresh in my mind, and also that personal connection just made it stick
Yeah,
out that much more, and I remember so much more because I've seen those places. I've been to that exact beach where he lies in the end. Like I've seen that, and
yeah.
I was like at that exact same spot. That was like our go-to every single morning where he
No way.
lies in like, the rain at the end. It's just damn, so good, so good.
That's all. I
Yeah,
gotta rerun it back. It's on Hulu here in the States. I gotta run that bitch back again.
dude, man, you gotta go to that hotel for like the maximum experience.
Where is it? Croatia?
It's in Croatia, yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Hell yeah. But what's your
Well, my
number 9?
yeah, my number nine, just saw last week, just dropped here in the States, maybe a while for you, and that is well, another A24. I'm looking, there's a lot of A24 on my fucking top 10, clearly, but that's the Iron Claw. Zac Efron, Harris Dickinson, Jeremy Allen White. Have you seen this one yet?
It's not out for me yet, but I'm so looking forward to it.
Okay, I really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. And it was one of those where this was not in my top 10 originally. This is what I swapped with Infinity Pool
Nice.
because I found that at first I wasn't underwhelmed, but there was a part of me that I was like, I wish it was just that one extra little just oomph to it. But then as the days have gone by, it's been almost a week. I have thought about that movie every single day. Every single day I have thought about it. And I'm like, that's got to count for something. And I bumped it up in the list because I'm like, I really want to rewatch it again already. Like, there's just something. It's a very dark and fucked up movie, and they really are telling a big story in a short amount of time. Like, I hardly say this, but this might be something that might have even benefited from being a limited series, possibly. Like even if it's just a 5 episode thing, like I think it just benefited from being like a 5 hour long thing as opposed to just 2 hours. But I really, really enjoyed it. The performances are some of the best of the year. Shot on 35 millimeter. It looks incredible. All of the actors are so good, especially of the four boys. And I think you're gonna really, really enjoy this film once you get a chance to see it. I think you'll really, really like it.
I'm excited, and those are the best films that really stick with you because initially they don't have like that thing that you're like, oh, this is the best thing ever. But then you slowly think about it more and more and more, and you just
Yeah.
learn to appreciate them more. And if only after a week you want to rewatch it again, that's just a great sign.
Yeah, it's I honestly I feel like it may even deserve to be just a tiny bit higher, but I really really enjoyed this movie a lot.
Hell yeah.
And I'm super excited to see kind of the trajectory of those actors. Like I am curious to see what Zac Efron gets after this performance, and I'm loving that a lot of these actors are starting to get more serious quote unquote roles. Who maybe wouldn't like an Adam Sandler or like a Zac Efron or what have you. So very excited for what's to come of all the people involved in this movie. But
Even with
that's my
Dwayne The
number
Rock
nine.
Johnson, as you might have
The
heard, like
new
he,
Benny Safdie. That's going to be the next one. That'll
yep,
be the
and I'm
next one.
yep,
I
and it's
cannot. We'll talk about that at the end when we get maybe
yep,
into our most anticipated. I have a feeling
mhm,
that'll come up.
hell yeah.
But you're completely right. Good poll.
Yeah. So my next one is John Wick and like the new one, Chapter 4. And I
Huh.
had to include this one because it's just batshit crazy. It's one of the best action films, one of the most stylish action films, and it has one of the greatest action scene involving a shotgun that also spits fire. That's all I'm gonna say. And it's an overhead from up top. I
Yeah,
talked about this one. Dude, this film is incredible. And if you're a fan of John Wick, and even if not, if you're just like a fan of action films, dude, check this out. It's just they took everything and they put everything in this that you could put in an action film. Like I don't even know how they made it. Just thinking about it makes me like all giggly and excited because
yeah.
how do you even pull this off? How do you even plan this? How much training goes into this? There's one staircase scene, a fight scene that goes on, and he tumbles back down, he goes up, and he tumbles back down, he goes up, and that just goes for like so long, and it's incredible. I think my
That's
excitement
amazing.
is everything, dude.
If anything has sold me on seeing it, it's just you talking about it 100%. And I love the first John Wick. I don't know why I've never gotten around to any of the sequels yet, but yeah, I got to get on that shit.
Yeah, because they always like the first one I loved, and then it slowly I liked them less with each one a little bit. But then this one came and it just set the bar for what action films can be
Is
and
this the
what
best of the sequels?
100%. It's the best John Wick for me in general. Like
Oh, fuck. Okay.
it's better than the first one, I think, and it just sets such a high standard for what action films can look like.
That's fucking sick. I'm adding that to the top of the watch list just hearing that then, because I love the first one.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, what's
Hell
your
yeah.
next one?
Cool. Yeah, my number eight. Jesus Christ, another A24 movie. I don't know what I'm saying. I guess I'm full of shit. A24 clearly came out on top this year. But this movie was a little bit more under the covers. I feel like it wasn't really talked about that much, and that was a film called "You Hurt My Feelings" by Nicole Center, I think is how you pronounce it. It's starring Julia Louis-Dreyfus, obviously of Seinfeld fame, and it has his name is like Tobias Menzies, I think. He was in Casino Royale, and um, he's a British guy who's in some more British shit. But it's this really cool New York like comedy that's in the vein of like a Elaine May sort of thing, or like it's just about human miscommunication, and like it's very much in that Seinfeldy way, which I love, and that's very much what I love. But essentially, Julia Louis Dreyfus plays she's an author like for novels, and her husband Tobias Menzies is like he's a therapist, and one day she overhears him talking with a buddy of his about how he doesn't think that her new book is any good. And she overhears this and she has like this crisis of like, because she's been told by him the whole time, like, oh, it's so good. The publishers don't know what they're talking about. They have no idea. But then behind her back, he's like, it's not good. It's the worst thing she's ever written. Da, da, da. So she kind of is like obsessed with this idea that her own husband is lying to her and hates her work, and it's a really cool dynamic. And like it's funny pairing that up with John Wick here, because it's the polar opposite, where it is all just very much on the street in New York apartments. Like it's I love movies like that are funny and are really just dealing with like human social norms and weird things in that way. And like I said, it's not Seinfeldian in like in terms of style, but in terms of I could see this being like a Seinfeld plot, because it is so nothing, yet it's something that we as humans have built up into something so huge. And it's really funny and has a cool cast. Like Owen Teague plays like their son, and he's in a ton of stuff. And Ariane Moayed, I think is his name. He was in Succession. He's plays a polar opposite character in this. That's super funny. But yeah, that's You Hurt My Feelings. Great New York A24 film. Have you heard of this one at all?
I haven't, and as you mentioned it, I looked it up and I saw the poster in like a 2023 because I looked at all the 2023 films
Yeah.
when I made my list and I saw it on there and I know it caught my eye. So I will definitely check this out. And I love films that are like basic in plot and it's just about like people walking on the street and talking to each other and like these smaller story stuff, like slice of life kind of thing. And the plot sounds
Yeah.
interesting, so I want to
Yeah,
check
it's a
this out.
very it's the stakes are low, but at the same time I understand how they're high, because we're all human, and like can take offense to things that are so minor, or there are weird social cues like having to lie to your wife because you're being supportive, but like would it be more supportive to maybe just tell her the truth that it's not that good and she can do better? Yeah, it's all of these things. It's really interesting stuff, and it's all the stuff that I like. But I wish more people were talking about this movie. It's called You Hurt My Feelings. Very, very, very good film. Yeah.
Very
Anyway,
cool. And I love that it's a complete opposite from John Wick. I think
yeah,
that makes our like list so much cooler.
yeah. What's your number seven?
Number 7 is a film. It may be on yours, but The Holdovers.
It is. We'll get to that later. It's a
Okay,
little bit
we'll get to
higher,
that one. So then it's
just a
right
little bit higher. Okay,
there. Okay,
so my number seven. I don't. I know that I brought it up to you, I think, but I don't know that you've seen it. Was a film that really came out of nowhere for me that I really loved, and that's Blackberry, the film about the creation of BlackBerry, um, starring Jay Baruchel and Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny. This movie was really like I did not expect this to be as fucking good as it is. And it's very Canadian. It's a Canadian film. BlackBerry's a Canadian company, and it's the most Canadian movie I've maybe have ever seen. Like with their accents and like the one guy's obsessed with hockey, and it's like
of
there's a whole
course.
plot line involving him trying to buy an NHL team and move them to Canada. That's I guess is a real story. Um, that's really I don't know I'm it's shot like a Safdie brothers like documentary, like it's very much like that kind of style that I really love stylistically. And on top of that, the story is really good, the characters are great, the wigs are bad, but the characters are amazing and the acting is incredible. And it has a great cast, and it's just yeah, man. I was really really taken aback by this movie. I had no idea that it was going to be um as good as it was. And I'm looking now, actually, one of the supporting actors who plays one of the guys that works for Jay Baruchel. He's the guy who's like more of like the tech guy. Glenn Howerton's more of like the business guy. But the director is this guy Matt Johnson, who I'm not familiar with, but I guess he was actually one of the supporting actors. Um, and it looks like he's directed a fair amount of things. Interesting. Had no idea. But I highly recommend this movie if you can find it. Um, I highly recommend it. You haven't seen it, right?
I haven't. I saw it on another list and it looked promising. And it's one of the films I wanted to watch for a future film that we're gonna discuss for like top
Yep.
four. That's
Yeah, I
one that
already
I
know the
want
one.
to
Yep.
watch for that. And this year also, like that reminds me, this year we had Tetris, which I also saw recently, which was great as well, which I might mention on that episode. But sort of like the same thing with like creation of something that is a lot more than one might have thought, I think.
And I was just gonna say that. I'm glad you brought that up. Like we are living in an era now. 2023 there was a fair amount, but I would say in the 2020s in general where there is an oversaturation of movies like that, where it's all
Mm.
about okay, let's talk about the founder of Tetris. Let's talk about the founder of McDonald's. The founder of Beanie Babies got a fucking movie. How they created what like they have all of these new things, and now BlackBerry. So I'm like, oh god, all right. And then I'm like, oh shit, this is like the best of the bunch. I'm like, this is the best of all of these. I don't know. It did a really good job of telling the story straight, at least from what I fact checked afterwards. It seemed pretty spot on for the most part, but also making it super entertaining. And it's like it had a lot of heart. Like it was very Shakespearean and it's very Succession y, very much in that vein as well. And it's inevitably going to be very Shakespearean when you get into that territory. Whereas others are like, let's just make a biopic about the guy who invented Beanie Babies because it'll sell, and there's not that much, you know, backing. I didn't see the Tetris one. Tetris might I don't know what side of the court that lands on,
Great one, but
but you know what I mean.
how did the Beanie Baby guy get his own film? Like that's what I'm
I
wondering.
have no idea, and I think Zach Galifianakis is the lead in that.
I gotta check that out just to see
Yeah,
what they made.
yeah, 100%. But highly recommend this movie, Blackberry. Very, very good. Shot very well, directed very well, performed very well. Yeah, that's my number seven. What's your number six?
Awesome. Awesome. My next one is Wonka, surprisingly enough. I had a blast watching it. So, just a little context. We went the day after Christmas, and it was kind of a spontaneous one. We wanted to watch it, but didn't know if we had the time. So, we just went without buying a ticket beforehand. We was like, maybe there's going to be a seat available, hopefully. We went there, and the only three seats available were in the first row, like in the corner.
Yeah.
And I was like, should we go? Should we just wait? But we were like, okay, it's the day after Christmas. We want to watch something. Let's just go with it. And the cool thing is those seats had like you could recline them and you had a thing
Yeah.
where you could put your feet up, which the other cinemas here don't have that, but this one had it. And it was my first time watching a movie like that. And I really liked it because it felt like I was inside the film. And yeah, it was close and like my neck hurt even before the film started. Like the trailers, I was like, I can't do this. Like I was just looking up like this and it was the worst.
Yeah.
The film started and I forgot about all of that. I was sucked right into it. It's such a joyful, playful, jolly film. It's so whimsical and it's just filled with so much fun and so much love. The guy who made Paddington made this, so that explains a lot.
Okay.
But Timothy Chalamet is so great in it. The songs are amazing. He has a great voice, and yeah, this was just so colorful. So it brought out like an inner child, like watching an old film. There was just like so much about candy and fun and things like that. And dude, I recommend this one. I know it's not for everyone. A lot of people will roll their eyes and be like, "Oh, this is so cheesy," but dude, I loved it, and that's why it had to be on my list just because of how it made me feel.
Yeah. That's
If you
amazing.
haven't seen
I haven't, and I
it,
honestly
okay.
don't foresee myself going to see it, to be honest.
Mhm.
But I do love that it's getting well, it is pretty polarizing. I feel like people are on either side, but I do love that there are a lot of people that really love it.
Mhm.
Because I was afraid that, how are you going to remake this movie again? You know what I mean? And I guess enough time has passed, but still, it's like the original is obviously very well respected. Even the Tim Burton one is very well respected among the people that really love it. And yeah, I'm glad to see that people are really kind of identifying it, and there's an audience for it, though.
I think what like made people like it, it's not a remake, it's a prequel, so it's set before those, and it could be even more, so
Oh,
it's not a
okay.
direct remake. It's how he got to have a chocolate factory and how he discovered Oompa Loompas and things like that. So
Okay,
I
okay.
think that's where the magic lies.
That makes more sense. That's awesome. That sounds
Yep.
really cool.
But yeah,
Okay.
that's my thing. What's your next?
Let's see. We're at number 6. Could be possibly on your list. Not sure. And that's David Fincher's new film, The Killer.
Not on my list.
Okay.
Barely did make it, but I'm glad it
Okay.
made yours.
Yeah, this was a nice surprise, and we talked about it on the pod. I'm almost positive
We
we
did.
did.
Yep.
Um, where in the opening credits, I was very prepared to be like, this is going to be a complete piece of shit. This because I will say it has the worst opening credit sequence of any film of the entire year. It is fucking awful. It's terrible. Um, and it's a funny gag, I guess. I don't really understand why he would make something that bad. David Fincher clearly has taste. I don't know how he thought that was acceptable. And if he's trying to make some kind of joke, I don't get it. But the killer itself, like the film itself, everything after that, I was just so sucked in. I really loved it a lot. I loved that it was almost kind of anticlimactic by the end. It just felt very real. It felt like the realest kind of hitman movie that there is, where, like I said, it doesn't always wrap up neatly and super cinematically, and it's just sometimes it just ends. You know what I mean? And I really, really, really liked it. I thought Michael Fassbender was fantastic. I thought the writing was pretty good, and I really had a good time with this movie. And anytime that I was like shifting around the list, this seemed to be the one that just never really moved from where it was at. I'm like, that seems right. It seems like a nice, number 5, number 6, number 7 kind of spot. Like it's a great solid film, and yeah, I really really enjoyed this. Looking forward to whatever Fincher does next.
Hell yeah, and I'm kind of sad that it didn't make my list because it was such a great film, and I think the more time passes on, I think this will just get so much better because it's not like you mentioned the typical, he gets the job 100% right, and then it's just like the
Yeah,
end. He messes up, and it's just the
yeah,
reality of it, and that's why I think it's so great because we haven't seen a like assassin killer type film like that Hitman. Like usually they execute the job perfectly, and then that's the end. But this one doesn't, and I think that's what makes it so interesting and cool.
yeah. It's just very real, and I can really really appreciate that, and it's just a total Fincher film. You know what I mean? So,
One of his best.
um, yeah. Anyway, that's my number six, The Killer. What's your number five?
Number five, yes. So the next one, and before I get into that, I think we need to clarify because for you, do you consider a film like the year it came out? Is it for you like when it premiered on a festival or once it gets a
Mm,
theatrical release?
this is like the never-ending question for me, and the fight I always have when I'm like, is this considered a 2023 release? Is it considered 2022? I think okay, so for this, there were films that came out like for instance, I really wanted to include Ennismen, which I never ended up seeing, but I really wanted to watch it for this.
Mhm.
And it came out like January like 5th or something. And I'm like, it's marketed as a 2022 film though. And I feel like if we would have recorded this 1 year ago, I would have considered this in the 2022 roundup.
Mhm.
Tell me that's not the film that you were going to bring up,
No,
was
no,
it?
no. It's
Oh,
not
okay.
this one.
Um, so I don't know. I didn't even answer your question, but that's just the where I'm at. I'm very lost in that situation.
Okay,
Um,
because the next one is kind of cheating a little bit because it's set as a 2022 film because it came out like at a film festival, but the theatrical
when
release was in 2023. Like,
what
yeah,
what month of 2023 was it
I think
released?
it's March or April. Let me check.
Okay, then I would say that's 2023. I would say
That's
that's
what I'm saying. That's
2023
why I wanted to include, and I just wanted to include this, but let me check.
because I think there's some that do the festival run and then they just get pushed to, like January. Then I'm like, okay, that's 2022 or like whatever the previous year was. You know what I mean? But when there's
Actually,
that much of a difference, like I would say that that's the next year.
theatrical release was in May 2023, so that's why
I'm gonna call that 2023. What
perfect.
movie is it?
His letterbox says it's 2022, but it's Paul Schrader's most recent film, Master Gardener.
Yeah, I would consider that 2023 for sure. Still haven't gotten around to it.
Perfect. You gotta watch it. Dude, this film blew me away. Paul Schrader, I seen a bunch of his films, but watching this film, like I need to watch every single one. This was incredible and it stars Joel Edgerton in
Mhm.
a very interesting role. So he's pretty much a gardener for this rich woman who has this beautiful estate with a beautiful garden, and like an annual event show is coming up where rich people come and they walk in the garden and eat, drink, whatever. But he has to make sure the garden looks great year round. And she has a sister who recently died, and she has a daughter who has a little drug problem, and she wants to get her to the garden and have him teach her things, for one, to get her out of like the hood and her drug problem, and also that maybe she can like be the heir. Maybe she can get like the garden once she passes away. And the girl comes and she is of color, and we find out very early in the film he takes off his shirt and he has all these Nazi symbols, like all these Nazi tattoos all over his body. And that's where I'm going to leave it. But this film is just,
Interesting.
dude, it shocked me so much. And I hope this is not a spoiler. It happens like very early in the beginning, and it adds so much to it. And it's very much a film about redemption. And also with Paul Schrader, usually his films and his main characters, they're like very it's a very hopeless world. He loves to torture his main characters. They're very much tortured souls. But this one, and I think that's like straight from Paul Schrader, I think he has in recent years changed a lot more. And this one is a lot more hopeful. And that's what I loved about it because in the end, it's not as depressing as his other films, which I love. But, he does something different here and offers a spark of hope. And maybe not everything is as hopeless as it seems. And there's maybe a chance for people to get a happy end, which I love. So this film, definitely check it out. It's one of Paul Schrader's best, in my opinion.
Interesting. Interesting. I really, because we'll talk about it later. We're gonna briefly mention some most anticipated for next year, and
Mhm.
I cannot wait for his next film that's supposed to come out next year. He claims it'll be his last. Um,
Hope
I
not.
cannot wait for it. And Master Gardener, I it seemed like maybe on paper wasn't my thing, but based on your description, that's like it's offering up a whole new perspective of it
Mhm.
that I did not know the film was maybe going to go to. I'm going to check that out. I'm almost positive it's on Hulu over here, I think. So I have no
Mhm.
excuses. I honestly don't know why I didn't put it on like yesterday, but yeah. Anyway,
I get why it maybe didn't catch your eye as much, but trust me, this is, and it's like the end of his most recent trilogy sort of thing with First Reformed and The Card Counter, which a lot of people
okay,
said is sort of like a trilogy in the sense
yeah.
of the main character, but this one is a lot more hopeful, and yeah, I loved it.
Oh, awesome. Well, my number five is Uh, well, it's a film that you had on your list as well, and that's The Holdovers.
Oh yeah.
Um, which I'll just talk very briefly about first, and then you can spend some time talking about it as well. But I really, really loved this movie a lot, and I didn't quite expect to love it as much as I did. I thought I'm really not as familiar. I'm very familiar with who Alexander Payne is as a filmmaker, but I actually have not seen most of his films. He's most known for Sideways and Election.
Mhm.
He did Downsizing a few years ago, which also was polarizing. People either loved or most people actually fucking hated it. He did About Schmidt. He did The Descendants, which is actually the only other film of his I've seen. But I really liked it a lot, and it wasn't quite what I expected it to be. I don't know what I expected it to be, but I love that this movie was made because there aren't films that are made like this anymore. There are not just these kind of heartwarming sort of comedy drama films that like it's very much harkening back to the 70s, and it's a fucking heartbreaker that he didn't actually shoot it on film. Although I did say in my review on Letterboxd that it is maybe the most convincing fake film grain I have ever seen. Because at first it tricked me, but then something happened where I'm like, something is not adding up here fully. And I Googled
That's
it and I was like, holy fuck, it's shot digitally. That's insane. Um, it's very convincing. And I love the whole title credit sequence and all of that. I really love this movie a lot. And I mentioned laugh out loud moments. I would say that this film, alongside Dream Scenario, has in the top two laugh out loud funniest moments for me of the entire year. When Paul Giamatti is, well, I'm not going to spoil for anyone who hasn't seen, but there's a funny moment, like literally with like 10 minutes left in the film, where he looks at like the headmaster of the school and he delivers one of the funniest fucking lines ever. That made me laugh out loud so hard. And I will definitely use on people 100% moving forward. But great film. I know it was on your list at what number 7 or 8 or something. What did you think about it?
I went to see it by myself, I think 2 or 3 days ago, and it was the last showing of it. And someone recommended it to me. Like I want to mention it, Ben, from
Uh-huh.
an Instagram friend. He mentioned it, and he said, "Dude, you got to watch this. You're gonna love it." And I looked, and I saw it's the last screening, and I had some money, so I was like, "Why not just go see it?" And it blew me away. It's an instant Christmas classic for me. Like it's instantly just one of the greatest and my favorite Christmas films, and it's so wholesome and truly, like you said, like a lot of people say they don't make these films anymore, and I'm so glad someone did, and someone even like included the classic look, even in the beginning when the
Yeah.
film starts with like the crack of the sound and the film grain, and it looks amazing. And it's so wholesome. Paul Giamatti, it's I think my favorite performance of his. I think he
Yeah, he
could
did a great
definitely
job.
get an Oscar for this, and it's just this film is incredible, and I'm so glad I got the chance to see it on a big screen, and that just made me appreciate it so much more because it looked amazing.
Yeah, you make a good point. I could definitely see myself putting this on like every Christmas or like every December. Like this is a certified kind of holiday film that it's got just the perfect amount of cheesiness. That's like
Mhm.
it's the perfect amount of cheese on this
Not
movie.
too much,
Um,
walks
not
the
too
same.
much, not too little. It's just perfect. It's exactly what was needed for this type of movie. Really nailed the nail on the head there with this film, and it made me really want to go check out more of Alexander Payne's films, especially Sideways and Election. I know I'm sleeping on those films. I know they're both very well respected and regarded, so got to get up on those. But yeah, number
Same.
five, the Holdovers.
Same. I haven't seen those as well. This was my first film of his. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I'm
Okay,
next
what's your number
again.
four? Yeah, you're
Yeah.
number four.
So my next film is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One. Had to include this one. I talked about it
Yeah.
on the podcast. This is as well as John Wick 4. Like this is one of the best action films ever made. And Tom Cruise does it again. Tom Cruise is a madman. He is actually insane. He tries to kill himself with every new film he makes. And the comparison with Buster Keaton is so warranted because he did the same back then. Like he just tried to kill himself with every
Yeah.
film. And I watched The General right before this one, which I recommend to everyone who hasn't seen the new Mission Impossible yet. Watch The General before this one. It will enhance your experience because it was a big influence on this. And you can tell that Buster Keaton was a big influence on Tom Cruise because he just said, I'm going to do what he did, but like a million times crazier. And that's what he did. And that's what he accomplished. And he is the greatest action star ever. And he is maybe one of the best actors to ever live. And I'll be so sad when he kills himself in a film or when he retires or when he dies of natural ways because this dude for me is immortal. I love Tom Cruise. He's an incredible actor, and Mission Impossible continues to be one of my favorite franchises. I love it more than James Bond, which people would kill me for, but dude, Ethan Hunt would shred James Bond. That's all I'm gonna say.
I love it. I was in a Mission Impossible binge earlier in the year. I think I made it up to Mission Impossible. Maybe I just watched the first three. I had seen number four in the past.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Fuck. Why
You're
didn't
on
I
the
finish
verge of
those?
greatness. You're like right
Yeah,
or where
I don't know
the
why I did. I was watching it with my ex girlfriend at the time. We were binging it. Maybe that's why. But
Mhm.
um, I really want to see it. I'm kind of pissed because the whole reason I was watching all of them from the beginning was like, I've got to go see this new one because it's supposed to be so insane. But I love that analogy with Tom Cruise and Buster Keaton. That's a fantastic comparison.
You can maybe like catch up to it before the new one comes out because I think they're going to re-release this one on theaters because it didn't do as well. So people have a chance to watch it and then watch the new
Oh,
ones.
okay, cool,
You might have a chance. But
cool.
yeah,
And that's going to be a 2024 release, right?
I'm not sure. It was supposed to, but I think it might get delayed. But I'm not
Oh,
sure.
interesting.
We'll
Okay,
see.
okay,
But yeah,
okay.
what's
Well,
your number four?
my number four you mentioned earlier in your honorable mentions, and that's Theater Camp.
Hell yeah.
It cracked the top five for me. Um, was shot on 16 millimeter. It looked so fucking good. And this was the most like laugh per minute of a film that I saw this year. This one took the cake. Like this, I was laughing from start to end. Um, I feel like maybe not as many people got around to this one, or it's maybe not being talked about. It's very much in the vein for people who are fans of like Best in Show, for people who are fans of The Office. This is like that, but it is so funny. It is just so funny. All the characters are so good. It clearly comes from a very personal place, which it turns out most of the stars um, were all writers on it. Like Molly Gordon, who plays the female lead, she was one of the directors and one of the writers. Um, Ben Platt, who was like the lead guy, was one of the writers. I thought Jimmy Tatro gave one of the best supporting performances of the year. He very much is just playing himself, that broy fratty kind of dude, but it was just so perfect for this, and he really shows like a lot of heart in it too. And I was very, very, very pleasantly surprised. I thought it was just going to be another kind of run of the mill sort of, quirky sort of comedy, but I really, really, really loved this movie way more than I thought I was going to. And yeah, man, I cannot wait to just rewatch it for years and years to come. I mean, this really was laugh out loud hilarious to me. Um, for a straight 90 minutes. It was perfect. Nice, sweet, funny, shot like a documentary, loved it. Shot on like it just checked every single box for me.
The Tristan
Every single box
checklist.
it hit for me. It hit every last one. Yeah.
It was so great, and I watched it, and I was surprised, but because I haven't really heard about anything, I just saw it on Disney Plus. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna check it out, and you can tell this comes from a very personal story. Like even in the beginning, they show actual footage of the two main,
Yeah.
yeah, of them, like Molly Gordon and just them as the kids, because they're actually lifelong friends, and they like were in
Yeah.
tears together, and it had so many great moments. I love the moment where they have like the kids have their auditions, and one of the and he like what's his name, Troy, like the son of I forgot her name. He runs the camp
Yeah. The
now.
the the Jimmy Tatro character. Yes.
Exactly, his name is Troy, and he falls asleep, and then this one kid comes and he starts singing.
Yeah. What
What
does
was
he
it?
sing again?
Post Malone.
Wait. What song was it?
It was a Post Malone song,
Oh yeah, that's right. It wasn't
and he just
Celebration, but it was something like that. And he's like, "Yo, you
yeah,
know Celebration?"
he gets up and he like loses his mind. He's like, "That's what I'm talking about." That was so
Yes.
funny. And another great, Alan Kim, the kid from Minari. He is
Oh.
the little kid who always like sneaks into the office and he wants to be
Yes, he's
like
the
an inventor,
agent.
an agent,
Yeah.
and he crawls on
Yes.
random people like this is the opportunity of their lifetime. And he was the funniest person in this film. I loved his little here and there, his little roles and his little scenes. It was so funny and creative. I love this film.
It's really I love that you brought that up. I completely forgot about that kid. I never saw Minari, so I didn't put two and two together that he was
Mm.
in it. But that kid was amazing, and I think that scene you mentioned of Jimmy Tatro getting up and dancing to the Post Malone and sing along is like one of the best parts of this film. And it's like it's super funny and it's hilarious as a bit, but also it's just like it is showing like, hey, this is like a three-dimensional thing. Like we can be as new and creative and use modern stuff, and it's
Mm.
I don't know. It kind of broke down the veil of like what pretentiousness could be on a project. I don't know. I really like this movie a lot, but I could talk about it forever. So that was my
So
number four, Theater Camp, Molly Gordon, and what was the name of the director? Nick Lieberman.
Lieberman, yep.
Um, yeah, and this started off as a short film as well that they were able to then build up into a feature, which is worth
True,
noting
yeah.
because that's very cool. So that's my number four. All right, we're now in our top three territory. I have a feeling. I think I know what your top three is. I don't know the order, but I think I know what it is. Maybe. But anyway, let's hear your number three.
Okay, the next one, I'm not sure if you would guess this one, but it's Perfect Days, which is Wim
Okay,
Wenders'
no.
latest film. The other two you know for sure, but this one I only saw recently, I think a week ago, and it instantly jumped into one of my favorite films of all time. I give it a 5 out of 5. Like this film blew me away. And I remember you mentioned like films that are very Dino films. This is
Yes. Is
one of
this one
them.
of them?
This is 100% one of them. It's it really healed me. Like it's such a meditative, zen-like state film, and it's about this guy who lives in Japan. He's Japanese, and he cleans public toilets in Japan, and that's the whole film. He goes from toilet to toilet. He goes from his day to day. It's just one day after the other, and he pretty much does the same thing every single day. But it's so wholesome, and there was an old couple next to me, and they absolutely hated this film. Like, every time a new day started, they're like, "Is this gonna be the whole film? this is so shit. And like even the wife said like, let's just go. And he's like, no, I want to see if this is actually the whole film. And it was funny that they were like this, but I was just there and in awe of what I'm seeing. It's right up my alley. It's so calm and like I said, it really healed me. Like I watched it and afterwards I just felt like my whole spirit was cleansed because this guy and it's played by Yakusho, I think. I hope I didn't
Hmm.
butcher that name, but he plays this old man and he is just so full of life and happiness. And every day he does these little things. Like there's one thing where there's one public toilet and someone put like a piece of paper with a tic-tac-toe grid on there and started it and put it like behind the toilet. And every day he would go there and play with that person. And that's like
That's
kind of a
awesome.
joke where he just like plays tic-tac-toe with that person. And in the end, the person just leaves the note with like, thank you and a little smiley. Just knowing he made her day better. And he's just such a wholesome guy. And this film, there's really not much to talk about in terms of plot. There's just things that happen. He has a sister who comes, she has a daughter. Like every day is just something new. And but every day is a perfect day. And even those little things, like they matter and they make each day so perfect. Like there's one thing where every day he takes a little photograph of the trees and the leaves like in the wind. And he does it every single day and he has like boxes full of just like that picture in the exact same spot. But every time it's different because the leaves aren't in the same position. Things
Yeah.
like that just make this film. And it has a banger soundtrack. It has one of the best soundtracks. And dude, Wim Wenders, dude doesn't miss. And I'm so glad I caught this in theaters. It's incredible. I highly recommend it. It might bore you, it might bore a lot of people, but if it doesn't, it will hit that spot that you're looking for and it will heal you. Trust me. So
I
great.
love it, man. I love Vim Vendors, and I know we've talked about him a lot. He's made some of my favorite films, like The American Friend and Paris, Texas,
Mhm.
and Alice in the Cities and stuff. But this was not really. I don't even know if it's gotten released over here. It makes sense now because I guess him being a German filmmaker, maybe he has
It
a
was a
little bit more
collaboration between Japan and Germany, so
in
that's
Germany.
probably
Okay,
why we got it earlier, but I hope it releases over there and
I hope so
everyone
too.
should.
I've never. Yeah, I didn't even hear about it, to be honest, until I think I saw you post about it on Letterboxd. Or Instagram or something. But yeah, I just added it to the watch list. I'm very curious to see because it seems kind of like a Vim Vendor sort of movie, but also seems sort of not at the same time. Um,
That
anyway, that's interesting. Now that I'm thinking about your top three or top two, now I'm like, oh, one of these movies means it's not in his top 10, and I'm very curious to know which of these three movies in my head did not make your top 10. But we'll get to that in a sec. I'll drop my
okay.
my 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 third favorite film of the year, um, which I don't know that we talked about it all together. I'm not sure, and that was Sofia Coppola's film Priscilla, um, which was the and not that it was they're having a dialogue. They're two completely separate things, but sort of I guess the cultural response to Elvis, which I just saw recently, actually for the first
You
time
did.
ever.
Okay.
Um, I think it's fucking awful. I think it's one of the worst films I've ever seen. I think it's terrible. But Priscilla, I'm like, this is a goddamn motion picture film. I'm like, this is a great film. It is one of those that I will say it kind of pisses me off, and I hate being that guy. But the fact that she shot it digitally actually did this a disservice. This could be film number one if she shot it on film because it deserves that. But like it's in parts it's a little too polished, and this is just me getting too nitpicky with it, where it looks too polished. And I'm like, this is like a very low key, like kind of dirtier sort of movie. Um, but it's unbelievable. This girl, Kaylee Spaney, plays Priscilla. She is fantastic. Jacob Elordi fucking kills it as Elvis. The script is so good. It's based off Priscilla Presley's like actual memoir. So it's based on real things that she told, and a lot of people did not like this film. A lot of Elvis like super stans are actively going out and shitting on it, um, rating it poorly on purpose. I know Lisa Marie Presley famously stood against this film, and she passed away. before the film could even come out. But Priscilla Presley, however, has stood behind it. She's actually an executive producer on the film. She 100% stands behind it. And to me, the fact that she is standing behind it, and I do love that she also loved Elvis, but the fact that she loves and stands behind this is everything that I needed to know about who she is and like what this film is, and that it is clearly based in fact. And it's really three-dimensional because it's a lot of people are like, this is portraying Elvis in a bad way and he's abusive. It's like, no, it's just portraying him as human. Like the Elvis film portrays him as this like God, and it shows him being imperfect, but it almost is like this Jesus complex, like, oh, the dirty old colonel, he did this to him, oh, this kooky old guy. And it's like that's a fact, but like what are your thoughts on the Elvis film? Because we've never talked about it before, because I never saw it, but what are your thoughts on it?
I liked it actually. I understand why a
Okay.
lot of people don't, but I agree with what you say, and I was excited to watch Priscilla. I unfortunately didn't get to see it because it left cinema before I got the chance to, but I want to. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I 100% agree with the light the Elvis film put it on. Like he's this god, he can do no wrong. It wasn't his fault. And what Priscilla does, and I know that the Elvis house, like they asked her to not make this. They were so much
Yeah.
against it, and that just makes me want to see it that much more. And I want to see like how Elvis was portrayed in that, and just to form my own opinion and just to see what someone else like has to say about him, and that's his wife. Like she definitely has
It's a
something.
perfect response to
Mhm,
Elvis. And I think I'm in a weird place where I saw Priscilla first before I saw Elvis. So my
mhm,
viewing of Elvis was informed by Priscilla as opposed to most people. Priscilla, their vision of Priscilla was informed by Elvis. Um, and to me, I 1 million. It's not even close, not even in the same ballpark. I think Jacob Elordi does a way better job than Austin Butler. People will fucking kill me for that because people think that that's the greatest performance that's ever been given. And it would be if Elvis was an actual serious movie and not a fucking cartoon. Because to me, I'm like, this is like, it's disrespectful to Austin Butler. This man went full on method, and you made this dweeby ass cartoon bullshit movie. This is all just my opinion. I'm not saying this objectively, and everyone's entitled to
mhm,
their own opinion. But to me, I'm like, this is like if Mike Myers went full method for Austin Powers. Like it's a joke. It's a cartoon of a movie. It's nothing. It's garbage. You know what I mean? So it
mhm,
felt disrespectful to me that Austin Butler went through all that, and this was the final product that you gave the fucking world, was this kind of a joke of a movie.
mhm.
Again, my own thoughts. But Priscilla, I'm like, this is a great fucking film. Jacob Elordi kills it. And it's and you can tell that through the memoir, it is there's a lot of gray area that maybe he wasn't perfect, but at the same time, there is something genuine there. There is true love there. Um, and it is not at all a bashing on Elvis by any means. It's just showing him as a human person is all, and people don't like to see that version of him. Um, but anyway, a great, fantastic film. I'll stop shitting on Elvis now. But yeah, great, great fucking movie. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. And I'd be curious to know your thoughts as someone who saw Elvis first and is now going into Priscilla, as opposed to me, who's maybe one in 1,000 who went the other way around. So
No, but I definitely think that I like Priscilla, and what I because I'm not like a big Elvis fan. Sure, I like his music, but I'm not like I wouldn't consider myself a fan. And I
yeah,
like
me
that
neither.
both movies exist because this one, of course, it's more cartoonish and like
Yeah,
over the top, and more so in what Elvis his style was. But then you have this different perspective with Priscilla, like what the reality was more like. And
yeah.
I like that both films exist. And you mentioned cartoon; they actually made an Elvis cartoon where he's secretly an agent. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's on Netflix.
No,
He's a
that
secret
sounds fucking
agent.
awesome. Actually, I can't lie.
And Matthew McConaughey, I think, voices Elvis, so I need to
Oh,
check that
really?
one. Yeah, I need to check that
Oh,
on.
I've never even heard of this. That sounds fucking
It's
awesome.
on Netflix, I think, and yeah, I just like that both exist. You have this more grounded, more realistic, and you have this over the top Buzz Luhrmann. She was born to make Elvis. His style just lends itself to Elvis perfectly, but I 100% understand what you mean.
Yeah. I think I just don't like Baz Luhrmann. I think I just don't like him. I don't like his style. I don't like
And
his movies. I think that's just I think that's what it is.
Yeah, but with this one, it fits at least. Like this makes sense. Like this
It makes
style.
sense. It makes sense that this matched up, but to me, I guess also after seeing Priscilla first, I'm like, this seems false. This all seems like a sham. This seems fake
uh,
to me. Um, and I fucking hate Tom Hanks at this point in history too. Which again, I'm a hater today on this pod. I cannot stand that fucking guy anymore. Um, so anyway, let's stop. I don't want to sound like a hater on this episode. Let's
Okay.
celebrate 2023. I'm curious to hear your top two now, because there are three Dino films I'm expecting to hear, and that means I'm only going to
Yeah.
hear two of them. So what's number two?
I'm interested to hear which one didn't make. Before I get into that, can we just talk about how Jacob Elordi had one hell of a year? Like this was his year. Dude,
Yes, this he's
I
become
mean,
one of my favorite actors. He's kind of like
like,
I think he's going to take on a Gosling type of character arc, like a Gosling Robert Pattinson type character arc in terms of what he's going to do with his career, and I'm 100 fucking percent here for it. And he might I'll go ahead and say this. I think he actually has the best taste of all three potentially because Ryan Gosling is starting to let me the fuck down. His movie choices that he's been taking are really letting me down. And I think Jacob Elordi has amazing taste. And seeing what he's going to do in 2024, cough, cough, Paul Schrader, which I want to talk about later.
mhm.
I cannot fucking wait for it. And the Sweeties, like I mentioned, I can't wait to see him in that. This dude is unbelievable. I'm about to change my fucking Instagram to Young X Lordy instead of Young X
It's
Gosling.
Elordi.
And I'm here on the ground floor for him. He's fucking unbelievable.
Dude, he's incredible. And this year, I mean, I didn't put Saltburn on my list. I don't know if you expected this
Hmm.
one, but I liked it a lot. I watched it last night and I thought it was incredible. And dude, Jacob Elordi had the best year, I think, for any actor.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Mhm.
thought Saltburn was going to make. I didn't think it was going to be in your top two or
Okay.
three. I thought it was going to make your list. I thought we were going to discuss it because, and again, I don't want to be a hater. I could not. I have thoughts on that film, but we're not going to get into it. We'll talk about it
Maybe
off
we can,
pod some other time.
yeah, or we can talk about it next week. It's still too
Yeah.
fresh to put it on my. It could have
Yeah.
made top 10, but it's still too fresh. So I loved it. That's
All
all
right.
I'm
Well,
gonna say.
what's your number two?
My number two is it's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. You didn't expect
Okay.
this one?
Wow. So this top. Wow. Okay. So right now, neither of those were my top. I forgot about that. That should have been in there. I just didn't even think about it. But now I'm about
Okay.
to be fucking mind blown at what your number one is going to be. I have no idea what your number one will be now at this point. But anyway, keep going.
Damn. Now you got me confused. Like, which two films did I forget? But okay. So, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I talked about it. This was one of the best, like, this was one of the greatest theater experiences I've had.
Yeah.
I was blown away. The animation, it's one of the best, if not the best animated film. We talked about this and we talked about part twos and part threes and whatever, and movies that are split into two. But this one blew me away. I mean, I grew up with comic books. Comic books have a very special place in my heart, especially Spider Man. And I learned reading through comic books. Like before I could read, my dad used to buy me comic books. He grew up in Yugoslavia. He was born there, and they had like different types of like action and spy and satirical comic books from Italy and US and things like that. So when we were in Germany, he would like buy me comic books just because they made him happy as a child and he couldn't afford a lot of them. And before I could read, I would just look at the pictures. And then once I started learning to read, I could just go back and I remember just pulling out this huge box of comic books, laying them on the floor and just sitting there all day and just reading the comic books that I've previously only seen the images. And that just opened up, of course, a whole new world of storytelling once both work together. Yeah, this film, like I remember like I got really into comic books again once I got my allowance, and that was around like 2012, 2013 when once I was like 13, 14, 15. And that's right around the time where in the comics I got to the comic store and I saw Death of Spider-Man. And that's before I was able to use the internet really, so I didn't really know what this was. This blew my mind, like what's happening? What do you mean Spider-Man dies? And of course, in comic books, heroes always die, but this was such a big event for me. And once he died, like later, Miles Morales took over as the Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe. And so I was with Miles Morales all the way from his creation in 2011 or 12, I think, to now, and seeing him helm the best Spider-Man movie in my opinion. And just to see how far from his creation he has come and what kind of inspiration. And now, before that, everyone was like, "Oh, Spider-Man is Peter Parker," but now everyone knows like Spider-Man. There are a lot of Spider-Man, and everyone can helm the title of Spider-Man. And it's not Miles Morales; he's also Spider-Man, and that's just the way it inspired a lot of kids of color and just kids in general. It's so incredible, and to see him. I know he's a fictional character, but I'm so proud of like him and all the creators and things like that. To see where we're at right now with Spider-Man and with Miles and all of that, and with this film, it's just a love letter to Spider-Man. It's a love letter to comic books, and I mean, what else can I say? It's just one of the best animated films and the best comic book film ever made. So yeah, that's all I have to say about my love for Miles Morales, for Spider-Man, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Hell yeah. And I can't wait for part three in 2036 to come out. And, we can talk about it then, maybe with our
Maybe
grandchildren.
you like it more once you have like the finished story.
Yeah, and I still enjoyed it, but I'm just like, just end the goddamn film or make it a series at that point. Don't hold me out for 2+ years. That's
Mhm.
the issue that I have. But the first one we've talked about, I think, is one of the all-time great kind of superhero Marvel films maybe ever made. I think it's
Hell yeah.
fantastic.
Absolutely.
Okay, my number two, which you brought up, you have not seen yet, but really blew me away. I thought it was fantastic, and that's May December, the Todd Haynes film with Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman. Although I think it's more important to note Charles Melton, who not just gives probably the best supporting performance of the year or one of them, but just one of the best performances in general. Where he's not asked to do much, but he's also asked to do so much at the same time. This is somebody who was pretty much groomed at a young age and is now, he's not catatonic, but it's almost like his brain has been wiped and he doesn't feel fully human. And it's very tough to get that that middle ground of somebody who is very human and not human, like at the same time. And he gives an unbelievable performance at. Once you see it, I already know you're gonna you're gonna devour. You're gonna eat that shit up. Yeah, I already know because it's so damn good. Um, and Natalie Portman is fantastic. Julianne Moore is great. Todd Haynes is a fantastic director, and it's cool and it's interesting because it is like a serious sort of film, but it's funny at the same time, and it's shot like a corny Lifetime special. And I think Todd Haynes has a way of sort of grabbing on to things in pop culture and really using not just the stories but the formats to his advantage. And this is a nice digitally shot Lifetime film. Like it is. That's exactly what it is. But it's directed by Todd Haynes, and it has a great cast of actors. But it is a Lifetime movie, and there's a weird like dichotomy that it makes it almost feel Lynchian in a weird way because it feels like, oh, a nice, cleaned up, sort of polished story that's very like cliche and unoriginal. Like I don't know. It's a weird combination of what he does, and it really adds to the tone. And I think he's almost sort of making fun at our um obsession with these Lifetime sort of specials, with these sort of reenactments of real things, and it's very much inspired. I forget the name of the lady, but it's very much inspired by that real story of that woman who began a relationship with that 12-year-old Asian boy. But yeah, fantastic movie, very funny, very dark, very sad, and also very interesting. And you're just in the hands of a complete master when you're watching this by way of Todd Haynes, one of the just the great directors that we have in America. So shout out to May December, great film. I cannot wait for you to see it.
Yeah, this was super hype for me ever since you mentioned it and talked about it. As like, as soon as you put it on your story, I was like, okay, this is gonna like be one of the all-time greats. But this is a very weird situation because it's a Netflix film, but
Yeah.
it's not out on Netflix for most of the world. It's just US, Canada, and I think the UK. The rest of the world
Yeah.
just didn't get it, and it doesn't make sense, I guess. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to it. There's a rights
Because
conflict.
it wasn't made by Netflix. They made it
That's
themselves. And I think that's where the issue lies, is that Netflix just bought it for distribution, like North America, I think.
that's probably it. But it's still a shame because Netflix whole
Yeah,
thing was everything, like everywhere at
exactly.
the same time. But it's just not, and it's a shame because this is one of my most anticipated films, and I hope if not on Netflix, it comes out anywhere really. I'm gonna pay for it. Like if it's
Yeah.
$10 on Amazon,
If it comes in theaters, go see it in the big screen.
I would love to, and I hope it does. Like I'm just so excited to watch it, and I hope I can soon. I hope I don't have to wait a long time, and I hope it comes out like maybe it doesn't even come out, which would be a shame, but I hope it comes out in like a theater so I can properly watch it and then report back to you.
Yeah, I'm curious to know your thoughts, but that's my number two. And
Mhm.
Dino, there are four films swirling around in my head. Really, a top three that I think could be in your number one, but you could blow my mind with this
Okay,
number one spot.
which
I'm very
ones? I'm,
no,
I'm,
no, no.
I'm
I'm gonna say it after you say what it is
okay.
because I don't want to
So
inform or change anything. What's your number one?
my number one, and I wanted to say like this is so obvious for anyone who knows me, but apparently not. And I'm so excited to hear which other films. But my number one film of this year is Past Lives.
Okay, that's I was expecting that to be in the top three.
Mhm.
Uh, okay, I expected it to be number one. I really did. But
Okay,
the other two, I thought for sure Barbie was going to get a mention in the top 10, 100%, because I know you really loved that movie. But now that I know Barbie's not in it, it makes sense that Oppenheimer isn't either, which it's funny, neither of those films made either of our top 10s.
true. Yeah.
Um, but I thought they were going to make it in there, especially Barbie. Maybe not so much Oppenheimer, but I really thought Barbie was going to make it in your top 3, not even just the top 10. It was going to make your top 3.
Mhm. I understand, and it might have, but I didn't really think all too much about it because I liked Barbie, but it didn't stick with me personally as much as these other
Yeah.
films.
Yes, I
But
agree.
Barbie was amazing, so it should have we should have made an honorable mention, but at the same time, Barbie was so popular and so well known, and everyone saw it and
We
had
talked
thoughts
about
about
it
it.
to
So
death already as well.
exactly, so I mean, it does well on its own. It managed to be like the most popular film of
Yeah.
2023, deservingly so. So yeah, but what was the third one?
It was Past Lives, Oppenheimer and Barbie were like the top 3 that I thought.
Okay.
And then I thought for a moment, I thought maybe you would throw in like Killers of the Flower Moon, like
Mm,
somewhere in there. But then as the list was going, I was like, yeah, actually, no, I don't think it's going to be in here. But those three, and then I forgot about the Spider Verse even being a film from this
mhm.
year, or else 100% that obviously was going to be in your top 3. I knew that for a fact. Once you said it, I was like, oh, duh, of course.
That makes sense though. Like Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon, both amazing films, and it has a right to be on a lot of people's top 10 list. It just didn't make mine, but they're
Yeah,
amazing films. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
But yeah, it's past lives, and there's not much else I can say about it because I already talked about it on a podcast. But
yeah.
it's a film that it's right up my alley. We talked about it. I saw it in theaters by myself, and I was just it was like a dream. Like watching this film, it's in my top 10 of all time for sure. It just blew me away. It's an amazing film. And yeah, there's not much else I can say because I've been talking about this film
Yeah.
ever since I saw it. Like I've been thinking about this film every day, and I just hope to someday make a film as great as this. And I don't know how Celine's song, I don't know how this is her first film. It's just if you make a first film and it's this one, like she could retire and she would be one of the greatest filmmakers in my opinion. But I'm glad she's not stopping and she's making more. And Past Life is amazing. You have to check it out. Everyone listening to this, check it out, and it's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah. Again, this is one that I missed this year. I have not heard a single negative thing about it. I don't know why I didn't get around to it. I think because maybe it just doesn't seem like my type of movie on its face, but also maybe kind of is at the same time. I don't know, just haven't gotten around to it yet, but it is out there, and that Master Gardener I got to get to ASAP from this year. Um,
Past lives will
that's
hit you
awesome.
hard.
I have a feeling, and I
Mm.
need that because I realize now, and there's a nice little segue. There weren't many films this year that really kind of evoked that sort of emotion out of me. I feel like now that I'm looking at the list, except for
Mhm.
my number one film, that was a gut punch to me, and that was Anatomy of a Fall, the Justine Triet uh, film that is starring Sandra Hüller, who is she's having a great year too. I think it's Hüller. I might be pronouncing that wrong, German.
Mhm.
Um, but she's also the lead in The Zone of Interest. So she's got two massive films out this year that are both like kind of the European darling films of the year, it seems like. Um, and it's crazy. Anatomy of a Fall actually isn't even going to be up for an Oscar because it did not win the French vote for the Oscars for international feature. They did not get the French nod. Um, fuck, I forget what movie. Was it Fallen Leaves, maybe? So another film got the French nod, but not Anatomy of a Fall, which I'm shocked by. But I hope still will get some buzz at the Oscars. Not that I really give a shit about the Oscars, but it's deserving. Um, but this movie is fantastic. It is shot so well. I mean, the way that the story is told, the choices that the director makes. I'm unfamiliar with who she is as a filmmaker, apart from this, but again, a supporting performance that'll really knock your socks off. There's this kid Milo Machado Granier, I think is the name, or Grainer. This young kid. He's not actually blind, but he plays a blind kid in the film. This kid is unreal. The dog in this film, the dog actually has a credit even here on Letterboxd. His name is Messi. This is the greatest dog performance ever, and I don't want to cheapen the film because that's what everyone on Letterboxd, which I'm starting to hate the fucking Letterboxd reviews and comments these days,
Mhm.
because they're all like, "Wow, get an Oscar for that dog," and it's like, okay, the dog is fantastic, but let's not cheapen the film because this is one of the best films that has been made in the 2020s in general. So let's not cheapen it with just some corny joke about the dog. But it is worth mentioning this dog literally, like, there is one scene, I don't know how it was done. Like, I've even listened to every interview there is out there, and she explains, but she explains in the most, like, oh, the dog was talented. Like, in the most, like, basic way where there is no answer. It makes no fucking sense. And I'm not going to say what happens, but the dog does something that I've never seen an animal do on film ever. It literally does things that some humans can't even do convincingly. It's fucking crazy.
Dude,
Um, but
you just I mean, I was already sold on this film, but now I'm even more so because was what
it's crazy.
the
And also,
dog
I
did.
also, but like I said, I don't want it to overshadow the actual film. But it is
Mhm.
just worth mentioning that. But like in general, because this kid Milo, it gives one of the, best young performances I've ever seen. Really brought me to fucking tears. Like this is a really, really like three-dimensional movie. It's just, man, I can't really even form into words how much I loved it and the way that they chose to tell the story. And a lot of it is really in the courtroom, for the most part, which I was not expecting it to just be kind of a courtroom sort of drama, but still in the way that they're able to tell the story through that, which the whole thing isn't. It's not like a few good men, but maybe a solid 50% of the film is in a courtroom, if not more. But the way that they tell it in one scene in particular, where there's an audio recording of an argument, and then you're seeing it visually, and then there comes a key moment where you're now back in the courtroom and you can only listen and you can't make out who is doing what and who's saying what, and it's just it's incredible. This movie is really fantastic. I think it should win every fucking Oscar this year. I think it's amazing. Um, and it made me even more excited to see the Zone of Interest because this woman Sandra Hüller, would that be the correct German pronunciation? Hüller, Huller, has the two
Huller,
dots over the U. Hüller.
Huller,
Okay.
Huller. I think let me
Yes.
check because I don't know.
What are those two dots called? Excuse my American ignorance.
Well, they're called Ö.
Okay.
Is it a U or a O?
You.
Oh, U. So it's U.
You. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
it's Sandra Hüller is her name.
Kuda. Okay,
Hüller.
she's incredible. She's very fucking good in this.
She's having a great
Um,
year, like with Zone of
she
Interest and Anatomy of Fall. She's the Jacob Elordi of Europe, it
of
seems.
women of European,
Women, yeah.
yeah, women. It's crazy, but great movie. Um, yeah, I could go on about it all day. But anyway, that's my top 10. That's your top 10. I love. We did not have much crossover. I think the only crossover was the holdovers in the top 10.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
Theater Camp was an honorable mention for you, and Infinity Pool was an honorable mention for me. But other than that, there was really no crossover. I think that's awesome, and I'm glad that Barbie. Not that they're undeserving or have any hate for those movies, but I'm glad that we didn't talk about them because we did talk about both of those films like ad nauseum, um, and yeah, I'm glad this was a really great year, and I think that we got to see some awesome movies, and we still have some others. So maybe next episode we can even do a catch up if there's any additional 2023 films we missed coming up, or maybe once it comes to like Oscar season, maybe in like a month
I
or
think
so,
that's
then we
when,
can get back at it
yeah.
and do an episode like that and talk more. But before we log off, and I got to get out of here in a few minutes, so we're a little crunch for time today. I want to know, do you have any super anticipated films of 2024 that you can't wait to see?
Well, let me actually check the list real quick because there are a couple. Like Dune Part Two obviously comes to mind. My most
Yeah,
anticipated is Nosferatu, like Robert Eggers'
yeah.
Nosferatu.
Can't wait for that Christmas over here at least.
Absolutely cannot wait. Mickey 17, I'm super
Yep.
excited for. That's one. Gladiator 2, of course. Challengers with Zendaya.
Oh yeah.
And there's one more that I need to mention. Megalopolis is coming out this year, which was
Yes.
confirmed by Francis
Cannot
Ford Coppola.
wait.
Dude, he financed it himself. Like, I cannot wait to
Yes.
see what he cooked.
Absolutely stacked cast.
Mhm.
Completely in control of his own vision. Like I'm very, very excited to see what he's been chefing up all these years.
Hell yeah. And there's one more movie that I found out about recently. It's called The Taste of Things. And it premiered in like in festivals a couple months ago, but it comes out in 2024 for me at least. And it sounds super interesting. It's a movie about like cooking, and I'm not actually sure what it's about, but I've heard great things. I've heard people talk about it. I saw some screenshots and it just looks incredible.
Interesting. This seems like a very Dino movie.
I hope so. I mean, I don't know what it's about really, but I'm excited to check it out. And there's a new Planet of the Apes film, which we talked about. So
Yes,
that's and
that's
Fall Guys. And Fall Guy called.
yeah. I can't wait for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I can't wait to see where they take that story and where that whole saga is going to go now.
Mhm. But yeah, those were I think
From
are mine. I'm probably forgetting a couple of things, but let's hear yours.
Yeah, no, I think you got a good solid list there. I'm obviously super excited for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm super excited for Mickey 17. Benny Safdie's new movie with The Rock, which we mentioned
Oh yeah.
earlier, The Smashing Machine. Can't wait for. Mentioned the Jacob Elordi Paul Schrader film, which is Paul Schrader teaming back up with Richard Gere since American Gigolo.
Mhm.
That's for Oh Canada. I cannot wait for that movie. The Bike Riders, the Jeff Nichols film with
Yeah.
Austin Butler and Tom Hardy. Can't wait for that. Here I have a whole list here. Weapons, which is the Zach Krieger follow up to Barbarian. He describes it as Magnolia, but a horror film, which
Okay.
sounds so sick. It has Pedro Pascal in it, Brian Tyree Henry. I think those are just a few that have been named so far. And then there is a movie that I saw yesterday that I didn't watch, but I pulled it up, found out about it yesterday, um, which is directed by Nathan Zellner, who is one of the directors of The Curse with
Mhm.
Benny Safdie and them, alongside his brother David Zellner. And it's a movie called Sasquatch Sunset, and I believe it's starring Jesse Eisenberg, Riley Keough, and Nathan Zellner as three Sasquatches.
I've heard
And
about
you're
this.
nodding your head. I'm assuming you have heard of this film. I never knew this existed until yesterday, and I think this might be my number one most anticipated movie of the year. I can't fucking wait.
I loved it. I've heard about it, and it sounds wild. I think this one is actually in my top 5 as well, most anticipated ones, because it just sounds wild.
It's yeah, it is. I can't wait, especially because I had no idea these were the dudes who did the curse. Because Nathan Fielder has directed a fair amount, but then you do see the names, David Zellner and Nathan Zellner later on. But it is, you know how much I love that series. So to see them now make a movie that seems also super fucking weird and has a cool
Mhm.
cast by way of Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough makes me very excited. So those are some of the ones that I'm most anticipating for 2024. I feel like 2024 is going to be a really cool year. I think it's going to be a weird year. Like there's going to be a lot of cool, unique, weird movies. Obviously, there's Civil War that's coming out in a few months, which we got trailers for, and a lot of cool stuff. I'm curious to see Alex Garland redeem himself. I wasn't a big fan of Men. I don't think you were either. I think we talked about
No.
that very briefly once.
Mhm.
Um, and I love his other two films really very much. So I want to know if he's going to get back to it. I honestly don't have the biggest expectations set up for it or the highest hopes. I just want to go in low expectations and then just be surprised if that's the case. But cast looks awesome. Excited for that. So uh, yeah, that's our year end episode. And most importantly, also is the first year of literally me. I think that's important to note about 2023.
True, yeah. And I'm excited for everything in 2024, but it's great that we have a little like step back and see what came out in 2023, what we liked. And I think we both have great lists, a lot of variety,
Yeah,
and I can wait for 2024, man. It sounds
it
amazing.
makes me so excited. So
Yeah.
excited. Well, all right, folks. Thank you so much for supporting the pod, for listening, sharing, whatever it is you guys are doing. We really appreciate it. We are going to be back to our regularly scheduled program for our next ep, and then after that, it'll probably be February. So maybe we'll get into our Oscar episode. Are the Oscars in February? They always usually are, but I feel like they might have pushed it back.
I think
Um,
I'm not sure. I never watched the Oscars, so but we can do our own little Oscar
our
version
own
of this.
Oscars just to put out around the same time. Oh yeah, it comes out in March this year, so we have time. Actually, that gives us even more time to check out some of these
Mhm.
other 2023 films that we might have missed, and we can put together our own best film, best actor, best actress, director, all that sort of stuff. We'll start planning for that, and we'll have another cool episode like that, I'm sure. But next week we'll be back. I think next week is next ep is The Big Short.
Yep.
So, yep. All right, guys. We'll be catching in on The Big Short, talking about next up in Ryan Gosling's filmography. And Dino, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and talk to you soon.
Pleasure talking to you, and we'll see each other. Well, we already are in 2024, but we'll see each other next time.
Next
Wanted
time.
to make a
All right.
joke,
See
we'll
you.
see each other in 2024, but it's
It
already that.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see each other for the rest of 2024 then, I suppose.
exactly. Bye bye.
All right. See you, man.